We began with Hefsek Tara, Mardachuk, Shivanakim, with the goal being, there were two goals, and I know that you guys live in Crown Heights, but what you're going to hear from me by the end of all of this is, what did the Rebbe really, not just want from us, but want for us? The Rebbe loved us very much. The Rebbe loved every Yid, how much more so the family. And he wanted a good life for all of us. And a good life means at every stage of your life, it's sweet and it's good. And there's one way to have that. And that one way is to know who you are. If you have a sense of identity, who am I? Then you carry that identity with you through all of the challenges of life, through the different times, different eras, through the different stages in your development. And that is the greatest gift that one can have, especially in today's times. If you have a sense of identity, I know who I am, and therefore I know how I need to react or behave under whatever circumstances I find myself in. And that's what he wanted for us, that we should actually know our greatness, our yichus, and be able to hold our heads up high and to know this is who I am. So we're going to talk more about that in Mitzvah Shem, but in reviewing, last week we managed to do, as mentioned, Hefsek Tara, Shivanakim, and even get a little bit into the day of the mikveh and the beginning of preparation for the mikveh. We spoke about the various times of day that are operative, and what I tried to do was really to make it as if you have to teach somebody else. Why did I do that? Because each one of us has learned, and there are areas that we hardly listen to in a review because, oh, that I know, but I'm more wondering about this. And it becomes important to maybe shift how you listen so that not only are you able to pick up things that you may not even know that you need to pick up, but when you teach someone else, it's a different story. Now, sometimes we have the responsibility of teaching someone else. But there's a story that Rabbi Mendel Glukowski tells. And he tells a story about Reb Mendel Futterfass and the mitzvah of tefillin. And he said that Reb Mendel, as you know, Reb Mendel spent many years in Siberia. And even when he was no longer in Siberia, there were many things from that experience that definitely impacted on the way that he reacted. Not only that he told stories of what happened. Now, he used to go on the mitzvah of tefillin. Every Friday, he used to go with his Talmud, Rabbi Glukowski, and even when he got very old and his legs didn't work anymore, he would ask him to pick him up, and it was just, from what I understand, they had to put him into the car, and he couldn't run around as he used to, asking, would you like to put on tefillin? So his Talmud asked him one day, why do you keep going? And he said that when he came out of Russia and he went into the Rebbe, and he asked, how can I make up for it that I did not put on tefillin all those years? And the Rebbe said to him, get other people to put on tefillin. So he took it, not only that I need to do for others, but I need to do for myself. And no matter how well we have ever kept Taharas Hamishpacha, obviously we are human. And obviously, there will always be looking back and little regrets generally in your life. You know, if I only knew. And teaching someone else brings us a great schus. There's this woman that I managed to get in her 40s to go to the mikveh, but she only went for a year and a half, and then she didn't need to go anymore. And she often, when she sees me, says, I have two great regrets in life. The one is, she says, that I listened to my husband and didn't have more than 3 children. Very popular number in South Africa. You have your 3 children and you've done your bit to your responsibilities, to yourself and to Hashem. She said, how was I so stupid? What was I thinking? And the second regret is that she didn't learn about mikveh earlier. She had 1.5 years. She said, I loved it. I just enjoyed it so much. But mikveh is different for everybody. But certainly, in reaching out to other people, you complete yourself. And that was the Rebbe's wish for us. He wanted us to be whole. And it's only possible when you give to other people. In a simple sense, and obviously in a deeper sense. So I began that time by telling you to list 5 times of day. What I'd like to do today, when we've done a little review, is to look back at those 5 times and say, why did we need to know Netzach Hama, sunrise? What was so important about Shkia, or about Lichtmenschen time? Why Bein Hashmoshes? Why Tzeis HaKoichovim? Those were our 5 times. And in just thinking of those times, if we could say, you know what? We need to know Netzach Hama because Lichtmenschen time is useful because then we have a way of checking, I know what I'm doing. Because as we mentioned last week, one of the great privileges that a woman has in keeping Taharas Hamishpacha is that she gets to elevate time. We need to prepare this world for the Eibishter. Every detail needs to be prepared. Women have a special gift that they can elevate this inyan of time. We spoke last week about the various colors. We listed them into 3 categories. Mr. Shem, next week we'll touch on that again, if we don't have time today. We also spoke about the inyan of a shaila. Now, very often, for ourselves and when we teach other people, the inyan of a shaila makes us uncomfortable. You know, we're very happy to do what the Eibishter wants, but to take a bedika cloth to be shown to a Rav, or even more, to have to take a pair of underpants to a Rav, I mean, it doesn't sound sneistic, and it doesn't sound like something anybody would like to do. From the time that we're little, we are taught that certain things are private, and certain things you don't talk about, and certain things you take care of in a modest, discreet sort of way. And now suddenly, you get married, there are many things that shift and change, and one of them is the inyan of a shaila. So I shared 2 stories last week, stories about the Alter Rebbe, and I'd like to continue from that place for a moment. Essentially, it isn't every rabbi who can paskin shailas. And to become a Rav who will take shailas, take something called shimush. You have to be taught by another Rav. You can't look it up in a book. That Rav, number 1, has to judge, do you have the personality? Do you have the care? Do you have the sensitivity? There has to be a caring so that, number 1, the couple will do the right thing. But number 2, what is the right thing may vary with the couple. You read it in a book, it sounds like one law for everybody. But when you go to a Rav, you should have a relationship with a Rav. He should know your circumstance. He should know many things about you to be able to give you that support. It's not just a dry yes or no. Now, I know you live in Crown Heights and it's a very big community, but it's important that we don't lose fact of how these halachas were meant to be. The Rav is meant to take care of you in your marriage. He's meant to be the support that gives you the confidence, I am doing the right thing. In an area where there are so many colors, and by that I don't just mean on a cloth. There are so many shades of gray, and these halachas have to be paskined exclusively for you. Don't deny yourself that support and the joy that comes from knowing that you're doing the absolute right thing. If one ever sees a Rav, you probably don't see it, but in my community I can see the Rav dealing with the shailas, because as a Rebbitzin in the community, many people will bring the shilas to me, being a little embarrassed to bring it to the Rav or being new at it, and I take it to the Rav. Or, being a person who's been married all these years, I've had plenty of occasions to have to do that for myself. And the way that I am received, the care, the attention, and the truth is, the very scientific way that it is approached, unless you a certain preparation, as it were, and it sounded perhaps very dry. And when I went home, I thought, I said to you, cut your nails in the afternoon, and if you soak for 10 minutes in the mikveh, it's good enough, and all that sort of thing. I think it's important to emphasize that every woman is different. And to share with you the following, that right after Gimel Tammuz in South Africa, we began to, obviously everybody looked at themselves at the 10 mitzvahim to have refreshers and so on. We had a very big refresher at that time. And it was the first in a couple of years probably that we had done on such a large scale. And many women shared things with us. And I learned a lot then of things I'd never heard about. And one of the things, I mentioned it last week, was that one woman said that her mother was taught that you wash 3 times. You soap up and rinse off 3 times. So it was very nice, and we heard that it was a minhag Yerushalayim. Now, subsequently, I did teach it. I had a call from a particular a mikveh lady to say, she's got someone in the mikveh, she's totally neurotic, because she thinks she has to wash 3 times, and she's the kind of woman who rubs herself raw 1 time. Does she really have to do this? And it becomes important that we get a feel. As a kala, you need to get the chunk of what you need to do. But throughout your married life, it's important that you actually try and refine and make these halachas tailor-made a little bit here and there to suit the particular couple, to suit yourselves, or if you're teaching someone else, just to be able to make it comfortable. So one woman just enjoys the time out, and that's great. And she loves to soak. Our mikveh teacher told us, this is your time to relax in the bath. Take bubbles, she said. Just have a nice time. But then I told you a story last week about a woman who wouldn't get out of the mikveh because she really wasn't so happy to go home. So she's busy soaking for an hour and a half. We need to find the right balance that works for us. What are the goals? The first goal is, obviously, that you are totally clean and soft. Clean meaning no chatzitzas, which we will discuss what is what we call an interposition, something which interposes or divides between us and the mikveh water. What falls into that category? We need to be soft, but in addition to that, this needs to be hachana for another mitzvah. We need to be getting our headspace into what? Into union. Now union, yes, physical, but union on every level, resulting in what? Bringing the Shekhinah down into your home and ultimately into the whole world. That sort of headspace needs to be one which will be a little bit different for every person. One person actually enjoys taking time in the mikveh. For another person, she's very businesslike. She wants to get it done. She wants to know what's the bare minimum. We need to know that every bit of skin and hair and unusual situations are according to halacha, clean and soft. How much time you spend doing it, we're going to work, mit Hashem, in some of our hashkafa as to what's the goal over here? What are we trying to achieve actually? And again, it becomes a little bit different for every person. We want to make it warm, alive, real, and personal. So today, we're going to continue Hachana Lemikveh. Last time, we spoke about doing 3 major preparations by day so that we would have the benefit of daylight. We mentioned 5 as being possibilities: hard skin, cutting of nails, washing of hair, removal of makeup, and brushing and flossing of teeth. And it is preferable to be able to do 3 of them before the sun goes down and to step into our bath before the sun goes down. In that sort of way, we have tried to pace ourselves. Now, realistically speaking, each one of us is in a different position. You live in a different country, in a different season, with children, with responsibilities. But just as we get ready for Shabbos from hopefully Wednesday, Thursday, we will know that the mikveh is coming. How important can we make the pacing of the preparation for mikveh? We need to try and do that. You know for a week that you're going to the mikveh. Mrs. Altine loved to say, you know for a week, think ahead. What to avoid so that you don't become sticky and dirty, and what to do so the preparation for mikveh is easier. And we spoke a bit about that last week. Today, I would like to speak about chatzitzas. What if? Special circumstances, if you have an infection or a splinter or a sunburn or a windburn, how do I deal with these specific things as they come up? So first of all, we wash, we soak, we scrub, we wash from head to toe. It was mentioned to me here that people like to teach that you wash once and you wash again under the shower. If you do the 3-time thing, you basically wash twice. You scrub up once, rinse off in the bath. You scrub up again, rinse off in the bath, pull out the plug. Scrub up again, rinse off under the shower. So it works for some people. Once you have rinsed off under the shower, which is meant to do 2 things. Number 1, rinse away every bit of residue of soap and dead cells, etc. And the rinsing under the shower is also a final sort of checking in a way before you do other checks. You're going through in your mind, I'm rinsing my hair, okay, yeah, I washed it, I'm rinsing it, my face, here, there, and so on. In other words, it's a way of checking, but while you're rinsing yourself. Ultimately, when you step out of the mikveh, out of the bath, please step onto, I know here they give you a paper, still give papers, yeah? And put on your special, it has we've graduated. When I got married here in the mikveh, it was all towels and sheets and disposable slippers. Eventually, in my trips coming back here, I could see the changes. And that piece of paper was fascinating. Different mikvahs do things differently. Out of town, in our mikveh, there's not only do you get a towel and gown, which I saw they graduated here also, that they had gowns, but bathrobes, but that they're actually embroidered with the name of the mikveh, and towels embroidered with the name of the mikveh. They do not give you disposable slippers. They give you just terry cloth slippers, and they give you a washable mat to put down that you step on. But of course, then we'll talk about lint, and we'll talk about all kinds of things. Whatever it is, Taharas Hamishpacha is a combination of Yira Shamayim and common sense. And common sense, girls, is not so common. What seems obvious to one person may totally go over the head of the other. Try and make this a balanced activity. You come out of the bath, you step onto the mat, the paper mat, and you want to now complete preparation for Tevilah. The first thing I like to do is to put a towel around my shoulders because I'm going to comb my hair. And we don't want the hair to go on the shoulders. You start by slicking your hair back. We mentioned last week that this thing about hair conditioner that a certain Rav in Eretz Yisrael advocates, and we had a discussion about it. If anybody wants to ask something to clarify, we were taught never to use conditioner. At the Kinnis 2 years ago, one woman stood up, a woman from Israel, and she said, no, one should use conditioner. And she quoted Rabbi Farkash. If one has a need, one should ask one's own Rav. Obviously, we mentioned that the shorter the hair, the easier the mikveh. You come out, you comb through 5 places on the body, hair gathers. The hair on your head, by now, the scalp should be totally clean. You slick your hair straight back with as fine a comb or combing as you can. Again, to mention here, everybody's hair is different. Some have thick and some have thin and curly and straight. Everybody knows how to get their hair so that no 2 hairs will stick together, or be knotted together is more accurate. We try to really slick the hair back. We have eyebrows, we have eyelashes, we have hair under the arm if it's there, and we have hair between the legs. All of these must be separated, either with a comb or meticulously by hand. And the hair between the legs needs to be combed up and to the sides, get all the knots out if they're there. If there's no hair under the arms, it's just washed as skin and rinsed as skin. After combing through all the hair on the body, and by now we have brushed our teeth and flossed, removed makeup, followed it up with a soap to remove the bit of cream or whatever, we have gone through cutting of nails, cleaning under the nails. We've done all of that. It is time now to do something which is midoiraisa. It's written there, uvodka es atzma v'tovla. She examines herself and she immerses. This preparation that we have done is midrabanan. Essentially, a woman was meant to check herself, but imagine, if you started checking yourself without having a bath, it's like your husband going to do bedikas chometz and nobody has cleaned anything. So you'll be there for a few days. So rather we first clean up, and now we cannot forget, however, that there is this special instruction in the Torah that the woman needs to check. And how do we check? We check in 3 ways. Number 1, you look wherever you can with your eyes. Where can you look with your eyes? Well, you can look along your arms, between your fingers. You can look down the front of your body. You can look along your legs, your feet, the backs of your legs. All depends where you can see. When you cannot look with your eyes anymore, and what are you looking for? You're looking for pieces of hair. You're looking maybe for a bit of lint from the towel. And you're looking maybe for something that needs extra attention, which we will soon list under special chatzitzas. After you have done this, and you can't see with your eyes anymore, go to the mirror. And the mirror will catch you from about there to about there. And you will check, and you will say to yourself, how am I doing? Is it all off? Touching the inner and outer corner of the eyes, there's no makeup floating on it. Did I blow my nose? Okay, we'll talk about special things. Did I clean my teeth? There's nothing bothering me there. I can see that in the mirror. Took off all my makeup. If there was a pimple or a blackhead, I try to get it as soft as possible. Obviously, you try and think ahead and remove and treat things throughout the week. But now, here I am. Soften. That's your big friend. Soak and soften. Sometimes with a bit of Epsom salts if you have a wound or whatever. But think ahead. Pamper yourself. Treat yourself and give yourself that extra time and attention so the mikveh won't be as tedious as if you just suddenly arrived. Once you have looked in the mirror, Now you can't see with your eyes or the mirror. Now you have to feel with your hands. And you have to feel in the cracks and the crevices. You have to feel wherever you cannot see. And that really means in the ears, behind the ears. Feel around in your mouth even a little bit extra now. And check the rolls of the neck, under the breasts, under the arms, anywhere that there's a place of sweat, as it were, where the body folds. And anywhere that there's something that goes in the body, the ears, the mouth, any crevices, the nose, and between the legs, in any of those openings, we have to go carefully and feel that there isn't something crusty or something of lint or whatever. We have to touch where we cannot look. And once you have done this, between the fingers, between the toes, beis hakmotim, beis hastorim, any wrinkled places, any inner places. Because even if you cleaned your ear, maybe you left a bit of cotton behind. Whatever the reason, just do what you have to do. And once you have done all of this, you have checked every inch of your body, you have looked. You are now ready to call the mikveh lady. Now, if you're out of town or whatever, you'll know that they have different bells and different methods and so on. We even have a mikveh in South Africa where you knock. And a voice answers, I'm coming. So try and understand when you teach someone to include the possibilities so that they will be comfortable when they go to their mikveh. Now, what if in your checking you discover? What if you discover that you cut yourself and it's bleeding? You have to clean up the dried blood. Try and get the blood to stop if you can. But ultimately, wet blood is not a chtzitza. But we enter an area of, is a woman makpid or is this woman makpid? There are certain things that nobody likes. Nobody likes a bit of blood running down the back of their leg. It's just not nice. So that sort of thing is what general people don't like. You can't go into the mikveh with that. You've got to sit and work with that. On the other hand, you might be the kind of person that really cares about everything. It just bothers her. And if you're that kind of person and you are personally makpid, you have to treat yourself the way it will make you comfortable. Okay? Does that make sense? I'll pick it up again at the end. If you have chas v'shalom an eye infection, then any secretion which is wet is strictly speaking okay. You can't really stop it from keeping to come out, although hopefully it didn't happen on that day, but it might. If it didn't, you would have started to care for it. You would have started to take care of yourself. If it's dry, it's not good. If it's wet, you try and take away whatever you can. But if it's inside the eye, it would be okay. If there's pus on a wound, we spoke about soaking a wound, Epsom salts, try and drain it out. If pus is coming out, you do your best to try and clean it. Hopefully in today's times, people look after themselves better. People use an ointment like a Bactroban or what do you call it here, Neosporin. You have to take care of yourself. You have to understand that this is a mitzvah. And how much more so here that it affects another mitzvah. But the main mitzvah is that we have to be besimcha. We have to be able to take these things not only in our stride, but to actually rejoice. And you need to watch the steps that could lead to being upset. Soak your scabs, make them soft. If they can come off without any pain or bleeding, although the book says without too much pain, but my Rav said tell them without any pain or bleeding, then once it's soft, take a dry towel and rub it, and it should just fly off. Again, everybody's skin is different. If you're a very dry sort of person, everybody's different. try and be good to yourself. Get a good hand cream and keep yourselves moist. Get a good little antibiotic ointment and use it, but not on the day of the mikveh. Please don't use ointment on that day. Use something which could dry out the wound or soak it in very hot water with salt. The sticky bits of a Band-Aid, if you have a splinter. If the splinter, as you know, is totally under the skin, even if you can see it, it's not a chtzitza. If it's partly sticking out of the skin, you have to take it out. And if it's easily removed, you should take it out. Please don't get any splinters, bottom line. If you've dyed your hair, it's not a chtzitza, but if the dye starts washing out, you should ask a Rav. But I must say, it depends on the woman. And here again, let me give you something for the women that you will, Amir Tzashem, have the schus of teaching. I had a call one night from a woman. She was very upset. She wasn't a particularly frum woman. Her husband was certainly not this way inclined. And she had gone into the mikveh. The whole mikveh turned red. She had this long, gorgeous red hair. She said, I always go to the hairdresser, but this time I decided to dye it myself. The whole mikveh, and the mikveh lady threw her out. She said, after being separate from my husband all these days, I can't go home. What am I going to do? I tried to get hold of Rabbi Groner, and he wasn't around. I got hold of Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Weinberg. Rabbi Weinberg told her to wash out her hair one more time. He called the mikveh lady and told the mikveh, let her go in, and sent her home. And then we started to go into if there's any pieces, mamoshes, but I mean, he figured it out for this lady. When I was growing up, my mother took a lady to the mikveh. She was 32 in those days, not only old, over the hill. Somebody finally agreed to marry her. She was not beautiful by any stretch of the imagination. She had a receding chin. She had a big nose. The only thing, she was like haggard and bent over, thin like anything. She had one thing that was beautiful, her nails. Ah, did she have nails? So my mother's just a simple woman, like I am. I learned something. No, you have to cut your nails. The woman went hysterical. She's getting married the next day. The only thing she has that anybody would agree to that's really attractive. She came home and she spoke to my father. My father said, no. What does it say in the halacha? The woman says, it's my nails or the mikveh. I'm not going. If I can't go with my nails, then for her, the Rav will tailor make it. And you know what? For her, it's 100%. And each one of you needs to know that the mikveh is to make you, not to break you. We have to find, this is a huge thing, the mikveh, but we don't want to make it bigger so that it overwhelms. We don't want to make it smaller, so chas v'shalom, we cut corners. We want to make it a personal, joyful experience between the Eibishter and us, leading to our husbands and ourselves. It's a big, beautiful avodas Hashem. And therefore, don't minimize and don't generalize. Okay. The hair, okay? Then a nail. If you forgot one nail, to cut one nail, it's a problem. It's important, therefore, and we're going to speak about preparing on an Erev Shabbos, to really pace yourself and take your time. If you have to go to the mikveh Friday night, it's very easy in the big rush not to prioritize. It's so important for a woman to have her priorities right. And that's a struggle for women throughout their lives. Very few women are so strong-minded that they always make the right decision, and they're proud of their decisions, and they're confident in their decisions. Because a man has, first of all, the way a man is made, it's very much seichel. What makes sense? A woman, on the other hand, is very much emotion, feeling, regesh. And a woman gets drawn into the possibilities. So a man has his set things he needs to do in the day. He has to get up, he has to get dressed, he has to daven, he has to go to work. It's ordered out for him. A woman can choose. She always has, oh, I've got 5 minutes, let me do this. a woman can multitask, and a woman's priorities can be, chas v'sholem, her downfall. So when it comes to mikveh, make it a huge priority. And give it what you give your baby. I think I mentioned last week. Big byline to live by. Take care of yourself as you would a younger person whom you care about. You're Hashem's special person. That's not mostly how we were raised. But take care of yourself. How would you want your daughter to take care of herself? Well, your mother probably wants you to take care of yourself the way she would take care of you. But now, with your wisdom, prioritize and take care of yourself as you would a younger person whom you care about. And you'd probably be very focused and very on target. All dirt under the nails has to come out. If we have extra things that grow, extracellular growths like warts or corns or things that happen to grow, you can go into the mikveh with those. As long as it's not something huge that's in your way and that you just want to get rid of it, you live with it. You can go into the mikveh with those. Just make sure that they are well soaked and soft. If you have loose skin around the nails and you're very makpid on it, you have to clip it. Most women would want to do that. Food stuck between the teeth or a piece of dental floss stuck between the teeth is a chatzitza. And last week we tried to explain all about teeth. We said that temporary fillings, permanent fillings and crowns and things that are fixtures in the mouth are not a problem. But temporary might be. Question is, how temporary? Ask a Rav. Then the question was, what if something which is about to come out is in your mouth? Like next week you have a dental appointment, ask a Rav. In other words, the Rav and dentistry really need to come together. It's very, very specific. Okay. If you have a sunburn, you probably want to ask the Rav about the peeling skin, but just know that you need to nurture and cream, because if that skin's going to peel, it's going to die. And you're going to have skin peeling off, which ultimately he'll probably tell you to take off as much as you can, or not to get a sunburn in the first place. Similarly, windburn, peeling lips. Please take care of yourself. If you have eczema or a skin condition, please do what you can to heal it, and please talk to the Rav about how to deal with it. Any other things that you might have thought of? Okay. If you need to make a hefsek Tara, on Shabbos, on Yontif, on Yom Kippur, or in the 9 days. I think we mentioned last week, on Shabbos, to make the hefsek Tara before Lichbenchen. In the book he talks about making 2, but you can read in the book if you like. Making a hefsek Tara is preferable to do it, that when you bench licht you already have the Mechdachuk in place. But if you didn't manage, you obviously may continue until Shkia. But the preferable way is to do everything before Lichbenchen. If you're going to the mikveh on Motzei Yontif or Motzei Shabbos, please prepare on Friday, totally, and re-prepare on Motzei Shabbos. That doesn't mean you can't use deodorant or put on some makeup or whatever, but there is that derech, that suggestion, that you prepare totally and you re-prepare more lightly on Motzei Shabbos. If your mikveh is, if you need to make hefsek Tara on Yom Kippur or the night of Tisha B'Av, you do so, but as on Shabbos, you cannot carry the Mechdachuk. In other words, if there's no Erev, you can't walk outside with a Mechdachuk. And of course, for those who've ever experienced a Kol Nidre and a Mechdachuk, you need to save this thing. I mean, where in the world, what are you going to do with this thing? And if there's anything on it, you need to have a pre-prepared envelope. And you need, obviously, you might have a bag or something in shul, certainly if you have little children. Here in 770, I'm not sure how it works. Maybe people don't go so much to Kol Nidre. But if you're in shul, you have to have a way of putting this all away somewhere, somehow, so that you can access it again the next night, if it needs to be looked at. It was also mentioned here, we spoke about our Rav saying if you're absolutely sure that the Mardochik is fine, don't save it. It'll just make you nervous. But other Rabbanim feel that it's better to save it and look at it by daylight. If you're making a hefsek tara during the 9 days we mentioned, you should sit in the bath up to your waist or whatever, wash the lower parts, and that's absolutely fine. Making a hefsek tara in Shabbos or in Yontif, in Shabbos, using cold water, they say, but rather use water that was warm before Shabbos and allow it to cool. In other words, take water from your air pot or your urn, allow it to cool. Do not use a sponge or a washcloth, use your hand. We spoke about using a douche. Then, making a hefsek tara on Yontif, you can use warm water. And again, we're not squeezing anything. For hefsek tara, always mark down the Hebrew date of the hefsek tara. And since hefsek tara always has to take place by day, it is the day before the counting begins that is marked down as the hefsek tara day. We spoke afterwards that women are always checking. As your period starts to end, you want to see, is it ending? And what happens if you made a bedika in the morning and there was no bleeding that day whatsoever, and somehow something came up and you missed making your hefsek tara? But you had a perfect bedika in the morning and no subsequent bleeding. Report that to the Rav. That just might be allowed as a hefsek tara. Okay? In other words, it was your 5th day or the day that the bleeding is finishing. And as women do, you were checking. Then you went off to work or to school or to whatever, and it was a short day, and something came, let's say chas v'sholem, you had to take somebody to the hospital, and you came home too late to make a hefsek tara. If you had absolutely no bleeding that day, and you did make one bedika, call the Rav. He might be able to allow you to count that as your hefsek tara. Don't just assume that it's not good. Okay? It's not a lechatchila, but maybe b'di'evid, so call him. In addition to that, if a woman has started counting and then she stopped for some reason, like the book says, the husband was going out of town on a long trip and he wasn't planning to be back around the time of the mikveh, and she just left it. But then he changed his plan, and she was still, she had been counting. Ask a shaila, because the launch might just be fine as long as she did a bedika on day 1. There's a minimum. And under certain circumstances, those minimums could kick in. Chas v'shalom, a woman got sick and she had a fever, and on day 4 and 5 she was out of it. And she wakes up on day 6 and she's already had hefsek tara days 1, 2, and 3. Can she continue counting for the mikveh? She can. A woman should always be, she asks a shaila, but don't just assume it's over. A woman should always be aware of the day that she's up to. From the time that a woman begins counting, she should say, today is so-and-so to my counting, either after the morning or the afternoon bedika. But a woman should always be aware, this is the day that I'm up to. We are warned never to joke about being nida. And in a fight, chas v'shalom, to say, don't touch me, I am nida, or whatever. can actually plunge a woman into nida, chas v'shalom. If she can say there was a good reason, like my mother-in-law was standing there and I didn't want her to know that I'm pregnant, was the example we were given. Then she had a reason. Or if she says, because I did a certain bedika and I thought it wasn't okay. But stamazay to tease is not acceptable and could, chas v'shalom, actually plunge you into nida. Men are black and white. Women are all the colors of the rainbow. Men see things, this is emes, this is fact, this is seichel. Women see the absolute possibilities in things. Women are impetuous, yes. They can rush into things. But in truth, a man needs the boundaries of time because... Who's playing the flute? That's his whole life. Everything is shachris, mincha, ma'ariv, whatever. And women, on the other hand, are closer to the essence of the Eibishter and have been given the gift of choosing, of being sensitive and choosing. Nevertheless, everybody is involved, if you look at it, in all the mitzvahs. The Arizal says that because a man does certain mitzvahs, therefore the woman doesn't have to do them because they are plag gufa. Each one is a half, and they complete each other. And even before a man and woman meet, right? There's a bacher and a maidel. The mitzvahs he does are credited to her, and what she does are credited to him. Interesting. So with him we can see quite clearly things like tefillin and limud Torah and so on. But the Lashon of the Arizal is fascinating. I have here the book, we can look. And it says there, it's from the Rebbe, it's El Neshei B'nai Yisrael, that because the Zohar is doing it, then the Nekeva doesn't have to do it. It's very interesting to women who are not yet married to know that there's a man out there, I know, doing for you. And he's busy completing you, although you haven't met him, but he's doing it. And therefore, he's doing the inyan in the logical. We're doing time in a personal, sensitive way because our time is not according to the calendar, it's according to our calendar. And we, as the individual women, are actually doing something very highly personal with time. Verstehst my little point here. Anyway, so if a woman has done a hefsek Torah, move, don't move. The cup, l'chaim, okay. If a woman has had hefsek Torah, and we mentioned that bare minimum, like she just did a bedika in the morning or during the daytime hours, and a woman has done one bedika on day 1 and one on day 7, there is a possibility that she can still go to the mikveh. Again, ask a Rav. We don't want to throw out these kulas and then everybody, who needs this, who needs that? Because every bedika is an actual connection, a mitzvah that we should not be mevater on. We also spoke about if the bedika cloth is very scratchy, not that it's scratchy, but we're not very moist, and ask a Rav. He may allow you to lubricate. He may allow you to wet and dry out, totally squeeze out the cloth. Don't just assume, I'm doing this mitzvah with Mesiras Nefesh. It's a problem if there'll be a little bit of blood on that cloth. And even though you'll say, I felt myself being scratched, I worn my collars. But you tell people things. I remember the one color came back, she had blood on the cloth. She was going to be machmir. She was going to do this thoroughly kind of thing. And we need to live, we need to balance out, and we need to know what the real intention is. Ask a Rav. If you have stitches, ask a Rav. If you have a broken arm, of course you shouldn't have broken your arm. Do your best to get out of your cast, if you can, and wrapped up in a a strong bandage to go to the mikveh and go back and have your cast put back on or whatever. If you can't, the minute you can have your cast off, make sure that you're counted and you're ready to go. During the days that you count, of course, you wear white underwear. But the Rav has a request. Please do not wear white underwear except during the Shiva Nekiyim. Wear dark underwear. A lot of people suffer from shyness in our times, and you don't know when your body will suddenly start reacting to all the hormones in the food that we eat, or whatever, the stress in life, and therefore, rather than be nervous about something that you don't have to see, wear dark underwear and don't look. When you go to the bathroom, try not to look. Okay. Tefillah takes place at night. It should not be delayed to another day. You know the story with Yehoshua. Yehoshua stopped the sun in the sky. He said, Shemesh begivoin doim v'yoreach be'emek hayolain. The name of the Eibishter and his miracles was spread throughout the world. It was a great day. But do you know that Yehoshua was also punished? Because people who were meant to be tovel that night, and the sun went on for another 6 hours, and he kept husband and wife apart for extra hours. We need to do our best to get there, because the main goal of this mitzvah is to bring unity into this world, ultimately the unity of the Eibishter with Knesset Yisrael, which we'll speak more about in Mir Hashem next week. I think we'll go on and finish. We have a little bit more, not too much more, and then we'll have a little break, if need be, and then we'll do other things. Okay. If you're meant to go to the mikveh on Friday night, you go. If you were meant to go on Wednesday, and now you want to go on Friday, you need to ask a Rav. If it's not your regular time, ask a Rav. After a baby, don't just arbitrarily choose to start counting on a Friday. Obviously, if it's when you managed to make a hefsek Tara and it was absolutely because you've been trying and now you've managed, then it's your regular time to go. But if it's not your regular time to go, then don't just say, okay, I can go tomorrow, I can go on Friday. You have to ask a Rav. Okay. Once you have checked yourself in the mikveh, uvod kos atzma, from head to toe, check if you still need to use the bathroom again. If you do, then please use a little bit of water to wash up afterwards. And also, if you step down on the floor, please rinse the bottoms of your feet. The cleanest floor somehow has little bits of glitter or dirt or steindelach, stekelach, things, and you want to rinse the bottom of your feet. You should now have that feeling that Baruch Hashem, you have managed to do everything well. You have confidence now. You've gone through the list. And now you're going to step forward with tremendous, tremendous confidence. It's no point to get into the mikveh, oy vey, I forgot to wash behind my ears. Take the time now, when you check yourself, that when you get in there, it's with absolute simcha and confidence. What should one do? May I stand up? And you go and you stand at the bottom. If you're a really short girl, in today's mikvahs, they make 2 bottoms, but you cannot stand on a step. The very long step that they now make, I don't know what you've done here, but in the modern mikvahs, no, it's still the same. If you're short, you better know how to swim. And it should catch you, the water should catch you about 12 inches above your navel. And you're now going to want the mikvah waters to reach you everywhere at once. And it's going to be a combination of a strolling position. Relax. Let your elbows be a little loose, your fingers loose, your knees loose. Bend your knees. Assume a position as in strolling. Everything loose. Lightly shut your eyes and your lips. There's nothing wrong with, if you want to keep your mouth open or your eyes open. Most people don't want to. But no, that sort of flexing. And after you've relaxed in a strolling position, lean forward as a woman kneading dough. You want to go forward like this? want to go forward like that. And once you have that position, take a little jump. It will pull you under the water. Of course, you know, but I'm telling you what to tell other people. Take a little jump. The women are nervous. How am I going to get under the water? That little jump will just pull you under. And once you're under, just think, am I relaxed? Is the water flowing through my fingers? I'm not clenching my toes. I'm not pressing my arms against my sides. And allow the water to reach you everywhere at once. So let's go through this. Your hair has been slicked back, right? You get yourself into position. You're totally ready. You lightly shut your eyes and your lips. You relax and then move forward as a woman kneading dough. You take a little jump. It pulls you under the water. The mikveh woman watches that every last hair went under. It now goes all over the place, depending how long it is. And you come up and you hear her say kosher, and now you've got hair all over the place. What do you do with that hair? Do not do this. Push it back with your arm because it's inevitable. It will tear off if you push it back with your fingers. So just throw it back, slide it back, and don't worry that it's no longer slicked back. Reposition yourself. Now we're going to make a bracha. And the woman is going to fold her arms. Now, again, here there are many different ways that our mothers were taught, different people were taught. Some were taught like this. We were taught like this. Others were taught like this. Others combined it like that. And you notice that I'm not holding on to myself. That was also a teaching I got from a Rebbitzin, that rather than, it says the woman hugs herself, choynekes es atzma. It says, where does it say what a hug is? So if you don't have to actually touch yourself, her opinion was don't touch yourself, but rather fold your arms, or fold your arms, or fold your arms. I think the acceptable way that the arms should be folded under the breasts, and the other arm perhaps here, and you look up out of the water, you don't look into the water, you're not wearing clothing. They will, in most mikvahs, pass you something to put on your hair, even though it doesn't cover you completely. So you look up out of the water and you're going to make a bracha. The bracha we know, Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvaysa v'tzivonu al hatvila. And once we've made that bracha, we have to go for a second tvila. Give the cloth back, realign yourselves in whichever way you're going to be toivel. And once you come up from the second tefillah, again, cover yourself, look up out of the water, and say the Yehi Ratzain Sheibana Beis HaMikdash. After that, there is another tefillah. If you're from Beis Rebbe, there's another 5. And obviously, the most important thing here is to know that you're doing it right, the Gashmias. You know, we have all these teachings that a woman should daven in the mikveh, and you get very often a confusion between, I'm so busy thinking that I'm actually not thinking of other things, I'm not actually doing what I have to be doing. So number one, the main thing is, you want to lemaisa do it beautifully and impeccably. This is your big moment. On the other hand, it is a time of sensitivity to others, sensitivity to ask for the things we want, and in a subsequent shiur, well, it looks to me, well, no, I'll still stick with what I want to do today. We will look at the number 40 and why the number 40 is so appropriate for what the mikveh does for us. In approaching the mikveh seriously, one davens for edele, feine, frumme Kinder. And of course, we don't bathe again a full bath in the mikveh, and also not a full bath until the next shkia. In other words, not like a total shower where you also wash your hair. You can wash yourself, but no total washing until after shkia the next day. the mikveh will be closed on, yeah. In other words, no? You don't have a total bath or shower. In other words, from head to toe, you can wash parts.
I mean, I never did that when I took my college.
When you took your kala classes?
I never was taught that.
Uh-huh. I don't think I was either, but the Rav has told us, you don't wash again. It like
That night, I definitely had.
that night, and
Better to wait 24 hours.
until the next, right, till the next shkia. You can wash parts of yourself, but don't have a total bath or shower in one go.
For what reason? Is there a reason?
I think it's because, if I'm not wrong, and it's the same reason as why you don't wash in the mikveh, it's because you don't want to say, now I'm getting clean. The mikveh made me dirty. The mikveh didn't cleanse me. Now I need to rinse off because the mikveh doesn't do it for me. So in Russia, where it was cold, and the only way to warm up after going in a well was to actually take some hot water, that was a different story. But it shouldn't be that the mikveh didn't make me clean, now I'm going to be clean. It is to hold on to that water. Look, you can ask your husband, it's not, the mikveh will be closed on the night of Kol Nidre and the night of Tisha B'Av. Abisha should help, we shouldn't have those anymore. Okay. The mikveh woman should touch you when you come out of the mikveh. At least you should see something holy, like another Jew, as the first thing that you see, and it's preferable that she touches you, and normally she gives you the towel. They are trained to give a little rub. It's from the book. It's not just because they're warm and fuzzy. It's in the book. Okay. Let me end. When a woman becomes nida, she says to her husband, I am nida. When a woman comes home from the mikveh, she should verbalize, I have been to the mikveh. And if it's hard for her to say, then he should ask her, have you been to the mikveh? Or you were at the mikveh? And she can say yes. What?
Where else was I? It's very hard.
Yeah, it's hard, man. These are not simple things. You have to pass him a little note in that case and say, please ask me where I just was. Then there's a question as to whether or not a kala should say a shechianu. And we were taught that if her mother said a shechianu, then she would make a shechianu after the second tefillah and follow it with the Yiratzon Shibana Beis HaMikdash. So what if your mother doesn't remember, or if she didn't make a shechianu? So, of course, there's such a thing as a spiritual mother for some women whose mothers maybe didn't use the mikveh at all. And when I heard this, I had a desire to say a shechianu. And my mother couldn't quite remember, so I kind of just, did my thing, thinking that now my daughters will be able to say that their mother said a shechianu. Some years later, downstairs in 770, there was a little yechidus after Yontif, and they would block off a little area and bring these very interesting little mechitzas, but I mean they were like that banister. They were made of poles and a little bit elevated, a place for the Rebbe to sit. He climbed up there and sat down. So I was waiting with maybe another 18 people, 20 people. It was very small. And next to me was a woman from South America in a full-length mink with bleached hair, hair like an orangey color and little doily on top, and some gold teeth and many big diamonds. But also on her hand was a number from Auschwitz. And this woman was waiting there with some other South Americans. And when the Rebbe came in and he started to go up, loud, this woman with tears pouring down her face said a shechianu bracha. And everybody was feeling a little uncomfortable, like the secretaries were no, and the people, and the Rebbe looked at her and said, Amen. And when I heard that, I was there. You realize that it's not all for one. It's different for different people. She had, Baruch Hashem, attained a wonderful goal, and for her it was B'Shem U'Malchus Shechiyanu V'Kiyamanu, and the Rebbe said Amen. That gave me a little bit of a better feeling. You know, I was a wild one. And so we go. We're going to speak today about what is it that people want in this world. And if you ever hear a psychologist speak, they will say that what people want is status, power, and wealth, right? They want to be famous for something, they want to be rich, or they want to control. And when you look in Pirkei Avos, it actually says a similar thing. It says what? Ezehu chacham, Ezehu gibor, Ezehu oshir, Ezehu mechubar. Pirkei Avos asks the question, who is wise? How do you attain the status of wisdom? Is it because you wrote a book in this world? Is it because you became famous as an actor in Hollywood? Who has status? To whom do people look up? Pirkei Avos has a different answer. And when you ask who is powerful, who's a gibor, who's an oshir, who's a wealthy one? And I'd like to look at these 4 modules and to bring them into our marriages, into our interrelationships generally and into our marriages. So we'll start with chacham. Who is really a chacham? And the Mishnah answers, haloi made mikol adam. You really want to be wise? The simple meaning is learn from every person. But I'd like us to look at the word adam, and I'd like us to look at the words mikol. To learn from every person, we usually, as we're growing up, we think, I'll learn what to do from the wise people whose example I should follow, and I'll learn what not to do from the bad that I see around me. The Rebbe speaks about the word Adam. Adam is a very high level indeed. There's Ish, there's Enosh, there's Gever, there's Adam. And Adam comes in 2 ways. Either because Adam, the person, was made from Adama, or because he says, Adama le'elyon. I want to copy Hashem. I want to liken myself to something higher than me. But you know the interesting thing? The Rebbe points out that when did Adam get the name Adam? Only when he got married. Before he was married, it doesn't say he was called Adam. Only after they were married, Vayikra es Shmom Adam. To attain that high level, it is only through taking a wife. The Baal Shem Tov teaches us that when something annoys you in somebody else, it's a mirror that the Eibishter is holding up for you. Fix it up in yourself, and you will no longer be annoyed when you see it in the other person. The Rebbe brings it beautifully. He says, if you fix it up in yourself, it won't bother you anymore. If it still bothers you, you probably haven't gone deep enough and really fixed it. And eventually, when you've really fixed it up in yourself, you will have such empathy, you might still see it in the other person, but no longer will it make you angry. Now it will only be something that needs to be done. There's a Sikha where he talks about why the sons of Noach saw him uncovered in a different way. When Noach was uncovered in the tent, what did Ham do? The son of Ham told Ham, and he came and he talked to his brothers about it. Oh, there's bad things going on. Our father's drunk and he's uncovered in the tent. What did the other brothers, Shem and Yefes, do? They went to cover their father. And it says there that they took the blanket and they turned their heads backwards and they covered their father, and his nakedness they did not see. The question is, why does it have to repeat that ervas avihem lo yira'u? And the answer that Rebbe brings there is, he says there's two ways of seeing a problem. Either it makes you upset, which basically then means that the problem is with you. If you see someone else has a dirty face, check your face, it's probably dirty. But the other brothers, they didn't have the problem. It didn't annoy them. They just saw that something had come into their lives that they had to do something about. In our marriages, we get on each other's nerves. There's irritation. You marry the man of your dreams. He marries the woman he's been looking for. And within a short while, there's little things that bother. People get irritated with each other. If this is the person that you adore, that you thought was so perfect, and marriage is supposed to be a situation where you just grow and become better in the security of marriage, as it says that the word shidduch is from the word shoket umenucha, that a woman finds in her husband's home. Security. You know, I'm secure. These things shouldn't bother me. It bothers you? Hashem is holding up a mirror for us to say, this is what you need to work on yourself next. And it's so important to be grateful that not only is the Eibishter pointing it out to us, but he's pointing it out to us through a precious and close person. In other words, this is not someone who wants to hurt us. This is not someone who wants to irritate us or annoy us. This is someone who really cares about us. So why does he do those things? This is something from the Eibishter, that it's actually pointing out because Adam Korev Eitzel Atzmai, we don't see the stuff on ourselves. We see it on someone else. And our lives are meant to be a life of growth. And the only way we will grow is if we actually see it on someone else. So we should actually thank our spouse, and he should thank us, for the times when we get irritated with each other. Because the Eibishter is actually holding up a cue card. This is what you need to work on next, as it were. I'm going to share something else with you. Have any of you heard of imago? I didn't share that last week, did I? Imago therapy. Have you heard? Yes?
I just ask you to I guess re-explain why that goes with Izahu Chacham.
Okay. Certainly, I jumped over it. You're absolutely right. Who is a Chacham? He who learns from everyone. You need to know that everything is behashgacha pratis. The fact that you married who you married, you realize. But whoever the Eibishter brings into our space, whoever you happen to sit next to on the subway, it's behashgacha pratis. How much more so that the people in your environment are there to teach you. You have to want to learn. Eizehu chacham. And we as women need chachmas noshim. We need inner wisdom. Wisdom's a big thing with us. That's how we build our homes. Haloi made mikol adam. From every person, but certainly the adam whom you made into an adam by marrying him, there's a tremendous amount that you have to blend or learn from each other. And it's not an easy trip. If it's too easy, you're probably not going places. There has to be challenge. So let me tell you a little bit about imago. Some years ago, I turned on the radio. Now, I was a college teacher for many years, and many things I gathered from other people, what people said, and I used to share them with the college. But I was always wondering, you wonder, is this very totally oisgehalten, like out there in the world? I know it's based on this in Tanya, and that in Hayoim Yoim, and this and so on. So I open the radio, and this is what I hear. That this radio station that normally brings out the worst in people. You know, like people call in, it's a talk show, and if a woman calls in and she says, oh, her husband is rude to her, don't take abuse, stand up for yourself, there's other fish in the sea, you'll find someone else, you're worth more than that. Their whole shtel was always I. It was never about keeping things together. It was always living in a fantasy world. That day, I opened the radio, and I listened to the news, and I was going to switch it off. It doesn't interest me, their nonsense. And I hear an awesome thing, that radio station 702 and Fair Lady magazine, which is one of these, not quite cosmopolitan, but a magazine, are bringing out a couple to help couples strengthen their relationships, and they have the couple on the radio. So now I'm listening. When in the world did this radio station or that magazine ever be interested in full-on help and helping people? And then I hear a woman talking. She has like an Austrian accent. So they say, explain what you do. Did you write a book? She said, no. We studied under a certain person, and it's based on the following. You don't marry the person you love. You marry the person you need. Secondly, you marry someone like one or both of your primary caregivers, but most like the one who let you down. And thirdly, you get married to complete your childhood. So now I'm listening. Some of this sounds very good. Eibishter is not on vacation. Yoshef or Mezaveg, Zivugim, I mean, it's good stuff. Then she says, the less alike you are, the better. She likes to call one the hailstorm and one the turtle. She says, it makes things much more interesting. I, for example, she says, am very sociable. He is very bookish. From me, he learned how to socialize. From him, I learned how to think. When you meet them, it's hysterical. It's true. Then she went on to say that the first stage is called the romantic stage. In the romantic stage, it can last anywhere from 2 hours to 2 years. The good news is you can recreate it. In the romantic stage, she said, I didn't want my friends. I just wanted to be with him. Sociable aherahin, I threw all my friends away and spent all my time with him. She said the romantic stage is not a dangerous stage. What comes next, she says, is the power struggle. She says that's when chas v'sholom things fall apart. What's the power struggle? People come out of the romantic stage, which we need to talk about. What is this romantic stage? And they remember they used to have an opinion. They used to know how they like to dress, what they like to eat, where they like to go. Suddenly, they got their mind back. Suddenly, they're not just blobs of Jell-O wobbling on a plate, and they want to give in that sort of way into the marriage. Well, she said, she said, if you get out of the power struggle, you've turned a corner, you're probably safe. And what she likes to talk about is that you go from the romantic stage, which is an unconscious relationship, which we all understand. You don't see the faults. You just get in there. It feels so good. It feels so right. You want to do this. And then you wake up one day, and there are some warts and pimples. It's not as smooth as you thought. It's not as heilig or chassidish or understanding or caring or helpful or whatever. She said that's the power struggle. You've got to get out of that into something called a conscious marriage, where you actually can communicate and give and take and so on. Well, she said we were in the power struggle. I was back on the phone. He used to come home from work, find me on the phone, and get furious. She said, thank God we had a 3-part deal. First thing in the deal, whoever gets angry figures it out. It's your stuff. You're getting angry. What's making you so angry? Secondly, once you've figured it out, you come and know how, no matter how dumb it sounds, how babyish, how puerile it sounds, communicate it to your spouse. He's supposed to be your friend. And thirdly, that's when the spouse is committed to being there, to meeting the need, to being the healer, to holding the whole thing together. So she describes as follows. I'm on the phone. He comes home. He gets furious. Is there anything wrong with being on the phone? But he knows he has to figure it out. He goes for a walk. He talks now. He says, I said to myself, what's the matter with you? You married the woman of your dreams. You have a lovely apartment. You had a good day at work. You're nicely dressed. People like you. She's on the phone. You can't come in and say, darling, I'm home. Please hang up. Or say, when I come home, please don't be on the phone. You can't talk like an adult. What's this anger? Anger is babyish. We say, control yourself. Anger is connected to old stuff, babyish stuff that we all carry around. And he's busy thinking. He says to himself, you're 38 years old. So the woman's on the phone. You can't make a joke. You can't make a plan. You have to get angry like a 2-year-old. And eventually it clicked with him. What in the world was she reminding him of? It was his mother. His mother wasn't there when he used to come home from school. He had to let himself in, and there was nobody to welcome him. And his dream, his unspoken dream, and we all have them, is that one day it's going to be fixed. I'm going to marry a woman who's going to really welcome me home, because you know when you get married, you become the mother. He becomes the father. Of course, you're still the man and the woman, but you're also the mother. Hopefully, when he's feeling like a little boy, you can apply that. And when you're feeling afraid or unsure, he can be the daddy. It's like that. And he was looking for his mother. The idea that you move in together, you actually you have expectations of the dream of being parented the way you wanted to be parented. In fact, in the romantic stage, it's like being a baby all over again. When you have a baby, and the baby just lies there, everybody says, you are so gorgeous. And when the baby smiles, everybody says, did you see him smile? And when the baby has a new chokhmah, everybody's saying, oh, I can't believe it. Everybody come, run, see what the baby did. And that's the romantic stage. You don't see the dirty diapers, you don't see the spitting up, and you don't see the colic, and you don't see the baby waking up and waking you up. All you see is this gorgeous baby in that moment. And when we meet and we have this wonderful, out of the ordinary experience called romance, we feel like a baby back on its mother's knee. Why? Because the baby just has to say, ah, and the mother's there. Mother wants to give the baby everything, make the baby comfortable. And initially, that's the overwhelming feeling in the romantic stage. I want to make you comfortable. I want to please you. And it covers over the dirty diapers. It covers over the sleepless nights or whatever. He realized that his wife wasn't turning around when he came home. She was like absent. She's on the phone. She's not there. And he's longing to be welcomed in. And it's like a replay of his childhood frustrations. So he actually took a deep breath, this nearly 40-year-old man. He came in and he said to his wife, you won't believe this. This is so infantile. I'm so embarrassed to tell you, but she said, it's okay. She was a psychologist. He was the engineer, retrained to do the seminars. She said, it's because my mother was never there for me when I'd come home from school. And that's what you're reminding me of. And as he verbalized that, she said, no problem, I'm there for you. She said she would hear him coming down the hall and say, can't talk now, bye, hang up, stand at the door with her arms open, welcome, you're home, come, milk and cookies, or whatever she would say. She said, we did it every day. He loved it. We did it over and over again. Sometimes she said, I didn't hear him come in. He would close the door again to give me a chance to hang up and be waiting at the door. Until eventually, some months later, he said to me, it's okay. You don't have to do that anymore. And when we say, under the chuppah, it's supposed to be ahava ve'achva, shalom ve'reus. What don't you do for a friend? For a friend, to a friend you are gentle. For a friend you go that extra mile. You don't laugh, you deliver. And the wisdom of women comes through. She tells a story about herself. Well, he tells about her. That basically, they're kosher. So wherever they go to do a 2-day seminar, they look for a kosher delicatessen. And they're in this delicatessen, and she's ordering. I'll have 2 of those, half a pound. Oh, that looks good. Oh, give me one. He says to her, who's going to eat all this food? 2 days in the garbage. And now it's her chance to get angry. I mean, being on the phone was sensible, logical, right? Buying food is not so stupid. Buying so much food is pretty stupid. It doesn't make sense. It didn't take her long to figure out. She was actually a baby, a little child in the concentration camps. And the story goes that her mother somehow still had the ability to nurse her. But she had such rachmanis on other children that she used to take them first. And by the time this child was able to nurse, it was a dry breast. There was almost nothing there. So it's not only the hunger, but the fact that it was connected with the mother and so on. We need to be there for each other, obviously. We need to have a deeper understanding and not just accept. And marriages are not easy. We find that marriages are even more difficult today, and we can speak for a long time as to why. But there's one thought that's as follows. The Eibishter and Knesset Yisrael are husband and wife. When Mashiach comes, there's going to be a big chasana. And the Satan knows that midah keneged midah, as it were, or the face you show heaven, heaven shows you back. What we achieve now in our marriages will have the most effect on making Mashiach come. And it's the Satan's last stand. There's so much raiberai and annoyance on silly levels, but it's directly connected to the fact that this is Erev, the Satan losing his job. And Shalom Bayis will very directly bring Mashiach. And the Rebbe speaks in some of his communal Yechidasen. The very first one is good to look at, where he says every Pe'ula Toiva, but especially a Chasana Bayidin, hurries up the coming of Mashiach. Because the Binyan Adei Ad that we put out and we construct correctively will be the forerunner to the Dira B'Tachtonim. And he connects it very well. We have only come to Haloimed Mikol Adam to talk about that. Should we go on? You want to listen? Okay, if you have the attention, I'll go on. Ezehu Gibor. Who's a real powerful person? So, in the Mishnah, he says, HaKoivesh es Yitzroi, he who conquers his Yetzer. And it's worthwhile over here to look at the Yetzer Hara for a moment. In the first Sicha in Chelek Gimel, the Rebbe tells us an interesting story. He says that Adam Harishon only had to refrain from eating from the Eitz Hadas for 3 hours. And after that, he could eat from the Eitz Hadas, he could eat from the Eitz HaChaim, he would live forever. And Adam Harishon was Yitzir Kapov Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He was made by Hashem himself. He was so powerful, Adam, that we're told that no person will ever be as great as Adam until Mashiach. Mashiach will be greater than Adam. But until then, all the greats we knew or know about were not as great as Adam Harishon. So the question is obvious. Would you have waited 3 hours?
He knew he only had to wait 3 hours?
He knew. I mean, it's mind-boggling. What's the answer? The answer is, the greater the person, the greater his Yetzer Hara. And the Yetzer Hara at that time was the Nachash, the serpent. He was the snake outside of Adam, not just a creepy, crawly snake. We're told he was the highest. He had legs, a top hat, a cane. He was very close to humankind, I guess, and he was able, with his sly arguments, to bring a downfall. Adam was great. He had to have something to balance him. The greater the person, the greater the challenge. Now, the Satan does not bother us. The Yetzer Hara does not bother us when it isn't important. But when something is really important, he arrives. And he arrives with arguments and tiness and confusions to make us not do the important thing. So the Rebbe says clearly, when it's something which is necessary, it's the will of the Eibishter for the person, the time, or the place, the Satan will arrive. Chassidim have to understand that if the Satan is here, it must be important. But it's not easy. So sometimes there's a mitzvah that's really hard, but you do it. You hear about a poor lady, you go shopping, you cook, you pack up the peklach, you go on the bus, you go across town, you visit in a hospital, you feed her. It takes you 8 hours. It was a pleasure. And yet, to close your mouth when somebody insults you a little bit, or to just say the right thing, say that word which will change everything, too difficult. What's going on? Obviously, the big mitzvah that took you 8 hours is not so tied up with your neshama, the time and the place. But the very thing which is hard for us is really tied up with us and the here and now. And that's why Adam couldn't refrain. It's a longer sikh, it's a beautiful sikh, and it ends with a whole thing about women. But Adam couldn't resist because that was where the concentration of the choice was focused. And we need to learn from him that when something is hard, it's obviously important. And if it's important, we're going to do it. Of course, we need to support each other. It's so important to support each other, and very often the opposite takes place. Like that radio, like, you're fine, so he was wrong, you know. Soak in your misery. Sit with your koching. He'll never get away. How could he do this? And the answer is, this is about us. Through the mirror, the Eibishter brought us a challenge at the moment, or he brought us a test, and it's not so hard. The trouble is getting on that wavelength. Once you're on the wavelength and you hold yourself there, it goes very well. Are you with me? Get a bit of support. Okay, we'll move away from HaKadosh to Yitzra. Let's go to the Usher. Who's really rich? Hasameach b'chelkai, he who's happy with what he has. He's glad with what he's got. But I'd like you to look at the word chelkai. Each one of us gets a chelik from the Eibishter, a chelik in the world that we have to refine, and we get our portion in the shape of husband, in the shape of children, in the shape of in-laws, in the shape of community. This is where he's put us down, in the year that he's put us down, in the shape that he's put us down, short, tall, blonde hair, black hair, blue eyes, whatever the configuration is. A husband who does this for work or doesn't do this for work, children who have whatever they have, he's given us a chelik. It's not just a chelik of grit your teeth and go forward, it's to be sameach b'chelkai. Sameach b'chelkai. Everything's b'hashgacha pratis. When we get married, it says in a sefer called Tameh HaMinhagim that the woman sends the man a talis on that day. And what's the message by sending him a talis on the day of the chasana? And he says like this. She's basically saying, because the talis is something that saves you from going out of the relationship, Harei shelcha lefanecha. Behold what is yours, it's in front of you. Chelkecha hanitein lecha me Hashem. This is your chelik that was given to you by Hashem. Isha maskeles, a woman who's understanding. And he says there, litein leiv, that he should pay attention, to be someach bechelkoi daike. Dafke with his chelik, he should be besimcha. We have to look at our lives and rejoice with what the Eibishter has given us. Human nature is, but she has more, but I don't have, but I want, but why is her child, but why is... That's the human nature, to look at what's missing. We're making a big mistake. If that was supposed to be what we had, we would have gotten it. And then we would have been looking somewhere else. You know the Mimi and Simi story? You know, if you have a lot of brothers and sisters, it's too noisy. If you don't have any, it's too lonely. I heard a story told to send this message home about husbands and wives. It says, Can you imagine going into the nursery in a hospital and looking at all the babies and saying, oh, look at ours. Ooh, what a mieskite. Look, no chin, funny skin, a big nose, a pointy head. Let's not take this one. That's a much cuter. Oh, look at that one with the curly hair and the dimples. We'll take that one home. Never. Even chas v'sholem, when the doctor comes and says, you know what, I'm sorry, but your child's arm doesn't work too well. What's the parent's reaction? Let's leave that one in the hospital. Let's get one where the arm works well. Not at all. We will run for therapies and we'll go and find out and we'll make it. And look, it has one arm that works well. And what a cute smile. Look at those eyes, deep understanding. Look at that beautiful, beautiful head of hair. That's what we do. Our husbands need that same attitude. When you have a positive attitude, you bring a positive attitude into the home. And when you're negative or upset, you draw negativity. Why is it that with a child we will drive 2 hours each way for the right therapist and we'll do, and in terms of the husband, so messy and so inconsiderate and so sloppy. And you know what? Rabbi Bernard in South Africa has a saying. He says, Adam per Adam yivaled, a man is born wild, untamed. He says, whatever his mother didn't smooth out is over to his wife. But it's the way it's supposed to be. And whatever shortcomings we have, whatever childhood stuff we're carrying is actually the building blocks for the marriage. Imagine two people, they're so perfect. There's like nothing to bond them together. Each one is like a peacock preening in their corner because I'm just perfect. But if you're not perfect, and you're hoping that together we're going to build something wonderful together, and the pride that we have in that is going to refine us, and the security that that gives us is going to make us outgrow our shortcomings, we're very, very grateful. But it's human nature to look at what isn't there. I wish he was more Chassidish, and I wish he went there, and I wish he came home to help me, and I wish, and I wish, and I wish. Someach bechelkei daike. We are not simple creatures. We are physical, we're emotional, we're hopefully rational, we're intellectual, we're spiritual. And being a woman is not just a physical thing. Emotional is also. And the way we think is also. Women's liberals don't like to hear that. But it's true. A woman does not think like a man. Why? Because the Eibishter made her like that. And it's not a shortcoming. She's tailor-made for what she needs to achieve in her life, in her marriage, with her children. If she had too much seichel, if she was too harsh, she wouldn't be able to be gentle enough with the children. I'm just throwing something out. This is a whole discussion. But we have to know that the Eibishter is our third partner. He's busy behashgacha pratis giving our chelik to us. We need to celebrate what we've got. There was once, 5 more minutes. The PLO Yamach Shmam sent out a missive to all their cells worldwide to chas v'sholem harm Jews and Jewish property. This goes back about 18 years, and the Rebbe heard about it. And he came down and he made an impromptu Farbrengen. And he said many things there that we can learn from. But one of the things he said was that we should say Kapitel Kuf Nun, the last kapitel, because we should thank the Eibishter, that's Hallelujah, praise him, thank him for what we have. He says, if you thank him for what you have, he'll give you more. We have to work on that, and we're Chassidim. How are we different to non-Chassidim? We're supposed to be the positive ones. We're supposed to be the cheerful ones. We're supposed to be the ones who see the good and who dance and who bring down the good in a practical sense. Finally, Ezehu mechubad hamachabed es habriyos, who is honored? He who honors the briyos. And we know that this word briyos, number one, it means all creatures. Whatever the Eibishter created, we have to have respect for other people. We have to have respect for our environment. We have to have respect for Jews and non-Jews alike. We stand for something, and that's how we will be respected back. What is respect? We have to talk about it. But in terms of a marriage, the Rambam talks about what is the obligation of a husband to his wife and the wife to a husband. And you probably know it. A husband is obligated to honor his wife more than himself and to love her as much as he loves himself. And a wife, she's obligated to honor her husband yoser midai, exceedingly, over the top. It's not the style in the world today. The style in the world is just, we're all equal, say what you think, let it all hang out. And as much as we think that men are bigger and stronger, and we seem to be so frail and dainty, women are strong, and men actually are extremely sensitive. So, a woman who is mechabed her husband yoser midai has the key. She has the key. The key to her own happiness, the key to the shalom bayis in the home. You know, if the doorbell rings and you answer the door and a stranger is there, you look through the hole, fix yourself up a little. I mean, a stranger there. You open the door. Yes, may I help you? Oh, yeah, certainly. Oh, would you like to come in and drink something? You'll wait here while I find it for you. Oh, move away the toys. The man should sit down. The husband comes home. Who's there? The tichel can be on backwards, and the funny slippers are on, and the socks are falling down, and yeah, you open the door, oh, him, you hardly look. You know, so he came in. It becomes important to respect. What does the Gemara say? Chosen kala, the chosen daimel melech, the kala is a malka. What does the Gemara ask? How long will he be a melech? What does Gemara answer? As long as he treats her like a malka. Then the Gemara says, how long will she be a malka? As long as she treats him like a melech. We need spaces in our togetherness, not just because of mikveh, because of Taharas Hamishpacha. There needs to be space. And in the world we live in, it's coming from the outside that everybody's the same and everybody's not the same. Are the marriages out there working so well? I promise you not. Even those that you think are working well, we see Nebuch, the Karbonis. It's a disaster. We've got to go back to the way it was done. I always wish that I'd watched my Baba more. The Zayda wasn't an easy man. He was a very, very fine man and a talented man, but Russian, not easy. The Baba. Oh, I wish I had watched her more. She knew how to do this. What takes me tremendous effort, she used to roll it out of her sleeve. We need to understand that there is a difference between men and women. And there is a shtel. There is a way to approach this. As the Rebbe wanted us to do. You know that one of the last interview probably before the stroke with CNN, and you can see it. They said to the Rebbe, Rabbi, what is your message to the world about the Mashiach, the Messiah? And the Rebbe said, I've already given my message. If you want, I'll repeat it. And they said, please. And he said, the Mashiach is ready to come. It is only for us, on our part, to do an addition in the realm of goodness and kindness, and he would come. So the CNN reporter then said to the Rebbe, you mean with an addition of goodness and kindness, the Mashiach would come? The Rebbe said, just a little, and he'll come immediately. So we have to understand what is our work today. It's in the realm of something that all of us can do. You don't have to go to seminary or to yeshiva. It's something that anybody can do. But, as the Rebbe says, we're out bringing other people in, a mivtzoim, Avas Yisrael for people that we've never met. Avas Yisrael for the biggest Rasha, as much a biggest tzaddik. He says, what about the Avas Yisrael, la'adam koroiv v'yakar? Here at home, to be extra kind, to be extra sensitive, to be extra nice, because after all, the individual relationships that we are building, our homes, are going, Emir Hashem, to be so powerful that the light from them is going to burst forth and make the whole world, the Rebbe says, a house. And he will come and live here with Bnei Yisrael as the wife and him as his husband. as her husband? Yeah, our husband, her husband. And women are the women within Knesset. So we're the women within the women, and we know how to do it. We know how to do this, but it's challenging. The Gvura comes in, other things come in, but essentially, if we know what we need to do, and we know that it's a formula that works, we'll do it, and the Eibishter will bless our efforts with tremendous hatzlacha.